One thing, one thing.
So I agree. Okay, these are good ways to deal with it, and very often these are the ways we deal with it. So now what we'll do is we'll relook at how best a paper can be written. What happens when we do those two things is you're constrained by your data. You're constrained by your data, you're constrained by your analysis. It's not wrong, it's perfect because that's what we have to be constrained by. We shouldn't talk more than what we have. But when you're really ready to write a manuscript is when you have an idea. Okay? And it doesn't have to be that your data completely fits the idea to start with. You can always go back to fill in parts of that idea so that you can make the bigger picture. So always have a bigger picture to write your story. And that's what Shrutito said. When you have a story to write, that's when you write a paper. Okay? And so one of the questions that Gajendra asked was, what if it's already been published? What do you do? Very often that happens. Most of us, the way we do our work itself is before we go into field, we look at a bunch of papers. We look at papers that do similar things like what we are going to do, then come up with an idea. Most of our proposals itself are based on multiple works put together, and we're like, okay, I'll bring this component from here, that component from there. But usually what happens when you do such a thing is you are basing your work on stuff that's already done. So what makes it different? So what? Someone's already published it, and no big journal is going to take something that's a well-known fact already. But you can still have hope, okay? And very often, the hope can come in very different ways. For example, you can add a new dimension to the idea. I don't know if anyone has had an experience. Maybe, let's say you're talking about a very simple vegetation community analysis. What is there? We know that vegetation community, is a certain way. But what you can add to it specifically is maybe from your experience of the landscape, you can bring in disturbance variables or something that clearly make it different from some other thing. Okay, so that can be one, like changing the dimension.
I'll give an example. Currently, there's been a lot of literature which relates how communities are structured in nature and how that is related to how species within communities are related to each other. But most of these kind of papers are all based on secondary literature. Basically, they make communities for different sites based on field guides and checklists and all that. So I'm currently attempting to write a paper, and I think I have hope in publishing one of those journals because mine is the first study which uses field data to make the communities, define communities. I have got field data to talk about the resources for the species, whereas all the previous studies have used just remote sensed variables. So that could be just a way.
So that's the thing, yeah? So you can make it, just add a new dimension to it. Also, if your data refutes what's already there, then all the better, because that's the best selling point you always, get to have. Another thing can be if it's a controversial issue. For example, relocation of human beings or something like that. It's a very controversial issue. But suppose you have data that says that yes, relocation of people is important, or you say that it's not important. Both sides are equally controversial. So you can then harp on that point and make a good sell for your paper. And then maybe something else, which is the smallest of excuses, but it's something that you can use, is it's a new place. It's a new place, it's a new environment. Something is new about the way it has been done. So you can always use that. So for all of this, what does this tell you, this whole thing, this whole slide? I can see only one thing coming out of this slide. It's you learning how to sell your work. Okay? So when you write a manuscript, what you're trying to do is you're trying to market yourself. And that's all. That's all it is. So what you need to learn is to just find out what the strengths of your work are and be able to play on that as far and as hard as you can. Okay, so that's it. The moment you start accepting that, oh yeah, someone's already done it and I'm only doing this, that's when you weaken your case. So the whole thing is about just finding things that make it. So very often, what happens is when you write a paper, this is what Manjari was asking, you don't know where to send it. And we often think that because we've written the paper, some journal has to take it. That's how we deal with it. We're like, I've written the paper, I'm doing the service, I'm doing, the ecological world a service, so they have to take my paper. But often it's not that way. Just, I think I'll bring it closer. So what I usually do is I pull out, for example, if I have a paper to write, I have my story. Then what I do is I search for journals that have published similar stuff. Okay? So like what Gajendra was saying, sometimes if you go too close to the similarity, then they'll say that, no, we're not going to publish it because we've already published something like this. But still, a good thing to do is to pull out 3-4 journals which are similar to your work. Okay? And then try and rank them by impact factor. That's what I do. And you can rank it based on some other preference, but I rank it based on impact factor and tell myself that, okay, I'm going to, whatever I do, however I do whatever my research is, I'm going to write it in the form that the highest ranked journal likes to take it. And I don't want to take it, of course, it will always fall down the line somewhere. It's not going to go through the first shot itself, most often. But that's what I would do, right? So the first thing you do is to actually list out the journals that you like. For example, I can tell you for Conservation Bites. There's a website called Conservation Bites. Yesterday I sent a link for how to write a paper. But if you go through the blog, he always has a journal section, and the journal section has listing of impact factors, of conservation impact factor, journal impact factors. Also, it has another kind of listing. It's the Australian grading system, A star, B, and stuff like that. So you can even use that because those are large categories. So you know that one journal fits into A category, A star category, and then pick enough journals from whichever you want and start gearing your work towards that particular journal. Because unfortunately, if you need to get a paper out, you have to think of which journal you want it rather than you working the other way around. Unless you have a nature or science kind of an idea, then you can push it anywhere. But if you don't have a nature or science kind of an idea, unfortunately, all we have to do is we have to, make it a story. We need to make the story that, fits a certain journal.
And it also cuts down on depression. You have 3-4 already at the back of your mind. So at least if you get a rejection, you still have 3 to follow. So don't target just a single journal. Yeah.
Yeah. So same. All of this is the same. And of course, you read the aims and scope. Okay. So there are some journals. I don't know if you've noticed. There are some journals like, for example, diversity distribution, Journal of Biogeography. Yeah, no, I'm just getting the related bunch. And what's the third one? Global Biogeography and Conservation or something like that. There's a set of 3 journals, okay? All 3 journals publish biogeographical stuff. But very clearly in their aims and scope, they say that if you have a purely biogeography story, like an ecology biogeography story, send it to Journal of Biogeography. If you have conservation implications in it, then send it to diversity and distribution. And if you have global meta-analysis kind of thing, then send it to global biodiversity and conservation, something like that. So journals themselves, especially families of journals, have it ready. They know which one they want to slot where. So all you need to do is just find out which your paper slots into. And then of course, the other things of course is to check out quality and data standards. That's your, depends on how, that's it. The most important thing, if you want to send a journal paper to a journal, please make sure you cite that journal enough number of times. Okay? Make it, not that you have to make it your important citation, but make sure that you have enough of, say if you're sending the Journal of Applied Ecology, have at least 3-4 Journal of Applied Ecology papers appearing in your paper. Because only when they see that, they're like, oh, okay, fine, so this person is fine. And also another, it's going to help their impact factor. Another very important thing is when you send a paper to say Journal of Applied Ecology, for example, always try and get most of your other references from journals which are higher impact factor than Journal of Applied Ecology. Because that really it increases your quality, just naturally. Okay, because when you pull out papers that are better than Applied Ecology to write into Applied Ecology, first of all, that's what happens. Bigger papers get downgraded into smaller ones as time goes by. So you always try and make your reference set from a larger impact set than the one that you are publishing in. So very often what happens is when you start publishing small, like saying Journal of Applied Ecology, you bring in a small reference from somewhere, and if that gets too large, then very often reviewers have, lot of problems. So basically make it top heavy, and then people will say, okay, fine, this guy knows something. So it's just to make you sound smart. Yeah. Of course, there are other considerations on where to submit. Very often, your faculty, the PIs have agendas and want to put it somewhere. So that is one. The other few very important things to check out is how long does it take to review. Okay. Very often, we just put it somewhere and then we wait for whatever to happen, and we end up waiting for a very long time. Many journals take really, really long. But it will be very nice if all of us can consciously make an effort to find journals that take shorter time. And the best way to check it is to look at the journal paper itself. Look at about 5-6 papers. They'll say date submitted, date accepted. So just see if it is within a year. Usually if it's within a year, it's a nice journal. They turn around fast enough. And also look at acceptance to publication time. Like for example, Journal of Applied Ecology, Journal of PLOS for that matter, from the time they accept the paper to the time it comes out is about a week. Okay, that's perfect. Sometimes up to a month. Yeah, one of them was a week. Okay, but for example, Oryx, they're amazing. They accept your paper in this Jan and they publish it next February. Okay, so the thing is, it's actually accepted. You'll have to. Everywhere you will say accepted, but you'll be saying impress for 1 year. Okay, so you don't want to do that. I mean, frankly, what you would like to do is when you get done with the paper, you get done with the paper. And very often when you publish a paper, you don't go back to the paper yourself. So yeah, it's important to think. And another very important thing is to choose between open access and big publishers. Okay, some of us have ethical concerns. There are many of people who say, oh, I don't want to publish in these money journals because they're exploiting research and this and that. And then some people say that no, I want to publish only in open access because I want my data to be free. It's fine, it's good to have such things, but first be pragmatic. If the paper is going to go into a better impact factor journal, whichever it is, just choose it. Don't bother. Just for now, when we're building our careers, just take whichever it deals with. But the other thing, something that I've kind of encountered many people say, is when they want to publish in open access journals, they just want to publish an open access journal without paying the charges. Even when you publish an open access journal, you have to pay the paid charges to make it open, right? So people have a philosophy that I want to put it in open access, but don't have the money to put it in open access. Okay, so that makes no point. You shouldn't ask the rest of the scientific community to subsidize your work. Right? You have to do it yourself. So these are considerations that you have to take. And the other thing is, of course, most journals have paper charges. Like it ranges from $55 per page, and for example, PLOS for 10 pages, I think they take $1,800, $1,300. So it's something like that. So it ranges a lot, and very often we don't even budget this in our projects. We don't have money.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of these big journals like Ecology has paid charges, and there is no waiver. Like PLOS One has paid charges, but if you are from a developing country and if you don't have funds, you can request them to let you off. But Ecology, there is no way out. AMNAT has paid charges, there is no way out. You have to pay something like $1,300 to $1,500 to get your paper out in these journals. So it's like, although we really respect these journals, but getting them there is really tough. Like in future we need to learn to budget for these charges in our projects.
Yeah. And avoid shady journals. That's the biggest message. There is a list of shady journals. I don't know if anyone remembers, but some months ago I sent a mail with Beale's list of shady journals. I put that up on the Ferris thing again, and you guys can just have access to that list. It's very important to keep an eye out for shady journals, because it's not that they're only, it's not that you just managed to get a paper and it's a bad journal or something like that. Unfortunately, they're also predatory. They take charges from you, and those charges don't actually reflect in any of the work that they do, in either setting up a good publication house or nothing like that. They just sit and do their own Word format, make one PDF and then post it. Okay, so frankly, all the money that you give them, if you ever do give them, goes into just waste making, basically someone else's pocket. I'll get to the things. Okay, so so now there are two ways to write a paper, right? The first way to write the paper is the way we said we were going to do it. You have all the data, you have all your analysis. Now you break your head about which way to sell your paper. Okay, and that's what I've been doing all this while. So, can I take a book? Okay, so the way we've been doing it, I've been doing it so far, is you do your research, you put all your data together, you get all your results in place, and then after that, you make all the important figures, and then after that you worry about what do these results mean, and how can I make it a story, right? So this happens very often. I think most of us end up with this situation, because the first thing is when we go out to the field itself, we don't think through the entire process, okay? And this is what we end up with. And then we say, wait, think over many things. Then we write a first draft, and then we're not able to get very far. And then, like you said, we write an introduction with all kinds of things in it. We don't know which direction the paper is going. We don't know which direction the analysis is going. And then after that, write a discussion. And then, if you read the paper, I don't have an example, but one of my first papers, the introduction is something, the analysis and methods is something, and then my discussion is something else. Okay, so that's what happens very often. And then finally you come back to the introduction and make it all happen. Okay? Make it sound like I did something from the beginning, I planned it. But this was, the way I used to do it, and frankly it took me a long time to get a paper out. For example, one of the data sets that I collected in 2006, although I started writing in 2007, the paper finally made it out only in 2009. And that's because 2 years I took worrying about how best to put it. And it went through writes and rewrites of discussions and introductions. Yeah? But now more recently, I looked up that Conservation Bytes, the website that I sent you, and I figured out this really fancy way of writing a paper. And frankly, I've now started using it, and it's really good. I've been able to write at least 2 skeletons full speed already. So I'm very happy actually. So the thing is, of course, in this, if you look at this over here, you start with 1, which is conducting your research, 2, which is analyzing the data. But in this, what they do is they push that whole thing into the minus factor. Okay? So first step in your work is to write the main message of what you want to do. What do you want to go out to field and do? For example, yeah, one second. So, for example, if you want to just go and do a study on, say, how, say, some turtle is getting affected by habitat fragmentation, you keep that in your mind, and then at least your first job is to start with that sentence. Okay, I want to look at how this happens. Then what you do is you plan your study out. Of course, it goes back into your proposal work and all that, and then you draw what all makes up the story, and then do the work. And even when you get back to writing it, what you first do is, after all your analysis or whatever, your logic is in place, what you do is you write down the main message of your paper in 25 words. For example, what Monica was saying, sometimes you have too much to say and you don't know what to do with it. So the trick is, if you can't write a main message in 25 words, or if you have too many messages to write and it's not enough, it's not getting done in 25 words, that means you have more than one paper to write. Okay, so just split them up. Split it up into one paper has this message, another paper has this message, another paper has this message. But don't try to put everything together, because very often you confuse not just not just yourself, but the reviewer, and as a result of it, your entire paper, coming out gets delayed and a whole lot of other things happen. Okay? Then after that, you write a working abstract. So again, we're talking about abstract writing. I'll come to proper abstract writing a little later. But what you do when you write a working abstract is, what are the things that you've done? I'll step through it. But what are the things you've done? What is your aim? What have you done? What is your main result? And what do you want to tell from all of this? So if you can have these 4 to 5 points neatly listed out, that's the first step. Yeah. So this is what a working abstract will look like. About 5 points of why are you doing this? Okay. So I don't know if you've seen this the applied ecology abstracts. So Journal of Applied Ecology abstracts it comes in points. Okay. So that's a good format to use. So the first sentence is why are you doing this work? Okay. So maybe I can give you an example. So we did this work because tigers are going down, and we are finding out ways in which tigers can increase in some place. So let that be the thing. So what did you do? You went, put out cameras, you found out that there are so many tigers in this place, and this place has a potential to increase to this much. That's your what did you do. What did you find is, yes, this place has the potential to hold so many more tigers, and therefore is a hope for tigers in the landscape. So, okay. What does this mean? It means that this place that you are working in has a good potential, and if you put in money towards conservation in this place, you will actually make a difference. For example, let this be the thing. And the final thing is, what is this good for? I mean, whatever we've done, all of this is fine. But if your last sentence goes on to say that as a result of this, the Rajaji National Park will have more tigers than it currently has, it will make a horrible message. Okay? The message that you have to give over here is that in the context of global population numbers, doubling tiger numbers can only be done at small sites. You can't do it at larger things. So this presents an opportunity for us to double numbers at a small site, which can then contribute to a global conservation scenario. So if you are able to tie it all in like that, then you have a story to sell. So that's basically what it is. Okay, so what we'll do then is, I'm just going to run a small exercise where we'll write out a working abstract for one of the, one example. Okay, so let me just quickly explain this story to you. Okay, so this is our data. This is what I've gone and done. So there are, this is a hypothetical story of Maasai in Africa. They are living in high lion areas, medium lion areas, and low lion areas. Okay, I have calculated some socioeconomic attributes, and these attributes are, I've interviewed number of people. Okay, then how many people are there in the household? That's also there. How many livestock do they have? That's also there. And what is the monthly income? That's there. What is the income from other sources other than livestock rearing? And the final thing is predator losses to predators. Okay. So this is my story, and let me just explain what the general table means. The general table basically, I'll just because it's not easy to see. So the general table over here has livestock heads and people, which are almost same. Okay. In high lying areas, medium lying areas, low lying areas, the number of people living doesn't really change. Number of household with people are like 11, 9, 10, something like that. Okay? The livestock heads are also around the same thing, 35, 31, 42, really nothing changing over there. Monthly incomes are also somewhat the same, 308, 290, 309, something like that. Okay? And the monthly income from other resources are also not very different, 111, actually it's a little different, but 113, 138, 175. But the biggest difference comes here, which is livestock losses to predation. In high areas is 197, medium areas is 92, and in low areas is only about 31. So, if we were to write a story for this, what would you pick up, and how will you take it? So let's take that as the example. Let's write a main message, and then let's try and write a working abstract so that we have a paper in place. Is that okay? Okay. So someone start giving me ideas.
25-word main message for this. Mainly for the reputation.
Okay. Okay. So we've identified that the depredation is the story to tell. Is that okay? Or is there something else to tell?
Depredation and then related monthly income. Like,
Okay.
high
actually this is monthly income from other sources. So this is livestock income, this is thing. So if you add them up, it will almost come up to be the same. But yeah, you can think of a story there also. So which is the most hard hitting story? Okay. So let's write a working. Yeah. What would be our main message for this paper? Quick one. We know what's happening. It's pretty easy. So let's just. I mean, it can be anything. I mean, where everything is right, everything is wrong. Okay? There's no paper published like this. So this is just a completely hypothetical story. So there's absolutely no reason for you to any story is perfectly alright. So.
Hey, I mean, the incomes are not offset by the predation.
Okay, that's an interesting thing. We can add that to the story. We'll add that to the story.
In spite of high predation rate, because of natural resource utilization, the incomes are almost similar across.
Okay, that makes a good story. Something else. Anything else? Basically, let's make it a 25-word thing. So
Actually here, the thing is that the income that is reported does not take into account the losses at all.
Yeah,
Okay. So the income is only what they are making out of the various livelihood options. Losses are completely, it doesn't account the losses they suffered because of this depredation events.
that's fine.
Yeah.
What he said is also perfect. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So anyway, forget that. The thing is, we're not trying to analyze the exact workings of this. How are we going to sell this? Let's say this is our most crucial table ever. Your entire story or idea comes from this. So we know that depredation is our story. Okay? We think depredation is our story, is it? Okay, so someone fire off.
Guys, most often our story is going to be as unromantic as this. We really have to learn to be creative.
This is I don't know, but yeah, we can try and make it fancy.
Deciding on compensatory schemes, looking at by calculating losses due to carnivores, something of that sort.
Or maybe relocating people from high-lying
Yeah.
areas. I don't know.
Okay, no, that's not bad. Yeah, okay. One more
We
thing.
can highlight also low number of household has supporting more number of lines.
That's also close. We don't know. But let's assume that that's not changing. Let's assume that that's fine. Let's assume that people are everywhere, and what's only differing is some natural variation in lines, for example.
Like even we can see, like it's not clear, but like at the end of it, if we can suggest maybe we need studies on prey density or natural prey of high garden area.
Okay, that's also
yeah.
a way forward to
The
go.
thing is, when this guy who writes this conservation rights thing, his idea about a main message is not about describing the data to the audience, but what is the larger story you are telling the whole world with your story. Okay, so for example, say if he writes about recovery, tigers increase after Gujars moved out of Rajaji, the main message is not that this happened in Rajaji. The main message is recovery is possible even in today's world if disturbances are removed. Because that is what is going to appeal to anybody, anywhere in the world. It's not about tigers, it's not about anything. That even in today's world with so many people, if you are able to remove disturbance,
You can
you can recover carnivore populations.
How about
That's the message.
conservation success results in escalated conflict?
okay. That's also an interesting story.
Yeah, that would make a message.
That will make a message.
Message is something which is outside of your study, like the larger, bigger picture that it is showing to the entire world.
That's a good message. Let's write that one down. Okay, so we can send this paper as In fact, there's a paper similar to this from tigers in Chitwan, where a patch of forest was recovered and tigers increased in that place and human deaths have increased tenfold. Okay, so there is a story. So yeah, that's a nice main message, and that came out in biological conservation. So we know that it can send. Okay, that's one. One more story. Any other story?
Strategies for successful coexistence.
Okay. But is that coexistence? Losing 200 livestock per year. I don't know what numbers those are. That's something, no? I just put something. Rethinking coexistence. Okay. Yeah, that's. I think that will somewhere feed into that. Yeah? If that's okay. Anything else? Think of it from the Maasai's point of view. What is happening to the Maasai? I don't know. This is what I thought of. So I'm trying to just get you guys to say what I thought of. Oh, what else?